This is an interview with NISON CISS, born in Dvinsk, Poland. Latvia. I'm Rona Arado. We're in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and the interview will be conducted in English. Today is September 13th, 1995. This is an interview with NISON CISS, C-I-S-S, born in Dvinsk, Latvia. I'm Rona Arado, A-R-A-T-O. We're in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and the interview will be conducted in English. Would you please tell us your name, when you were born, and where you were born?
My name is NISON CISS. I'm born in Dvinsk, Latvia. Dvinsk spells D-V-I-N-S-K. Latvia spells L-A-V-I-J-A. Latvia.
When were you born?
I was born the 20th of April, 1925.
Where is Dvinsk?
Dvinsk is the second large city from Latvia. The capital was Riga. And Dvinsk is near the lake. Was a lake there. And the lake called the Dvina. And that's where the area where we lived. It was a well-populated city. I think it was about 45,000 Jewish people, and was a lot of synagogues. My personal father was. He was a very active member. He was the cantor from a shul, which it was from generations and generations, very, very old. And he davened there for all the services, Friday night, Saturday, and all the holidays. He had a beautiful voice, and it was a volunteer job. And we were 7 children. We were 6 boys and one girl. And when we came in the shul, everybody admired us because my father was very, very respected there. And especially on Yom Kippur, when he stayed by the Om Kodesh, and he said the prayers. So all the sons, all the sons, he had it under the big talus, and he covered us, and he said the prayers. Everybody in the little shul was amazed, was appreciated, and was so loved, was so. They give us such an honor, you know, and that was the most precious time for us of the year. But we used to go all the time on Friday and Saturday. We used to go to the shul. It was a neighborhood shul, old wooden chairs, very, very old, and the shamus was a nice old man. And when we came in, they knew us because it's a small city. It wasn't a big city, but we were regular there, and they knew us like we were their own. And it was very, very, very touchy and very appreciated. The whole neighborhood, you know, we came in, we were like a family. Those people who belonged to that shul. Then when I started to grow up, and I was bar mitzvah. After the bar mitzvah, I started to work.
What was
What's the name of the shul?
The shul, I cannot remember. It's impossible. I cannot remember.
Did you have a rabbi?
Yeah, was a rabbi there.
Do you remember his name?
No.
What was your father's name?
Leib.
And your mother?
Itl.
And your brothers and sisters?
My oldest brother was Moshe, and the second was the sister, Rachel, and the third was Laser, my brother, and the fourth was Yosef, brother, and then I was Nissen, and then was Chaim, a brother, and then was Zalman. It was 6 brothers.
And where did you go to school?
We went to school. There was a Jewish school, a Jewish. I think they call it the Chaim Nachum Bialik School, something like that. And it was a Jewish school, and we learned Hebrew, we learned Yiddish, we learned the language from the country.
What language did you speak at home?
At home we speak only Yiddish. Only Yiddish, yes. And in the government places where you have to go, you have to speak their language, Latvian. But we speak both languages.
And describe a Shabbat in your home.
A Shabbat was very, very touchy. It was out of the ordinary. We lived in a small little house, a wooden house, and my father was very religious, and the Shabbat was prepared like for King David. My father had a table with chairs. It was very, very old and very, very beautiful. It was red oak. And when my father was sitting on his Mizrach side, when we had a beautiful chair covered with velvet. It was a beautiful chair. Nobody there was thinking to sit down in this chair because the honor of our father. And on Friday night was the mother was preparing Shabbat. She worked so hard. She started on Thursday, and we weren't rich, but on Shabbat was Kiyat HaMelach, and she tried to make everything so beautiful, and everything was done very nice. Then my father, he had to make the thing for Shabbos tea. So we had a samovar, they call it, a Russian style samovar, a very big one. So we made the samovar for Shabbos, and then on Shabbos, when we had to use it, it came in a boy, not a Jewish boy, and you had to add some coal in this. And that's how my father started to think that we should have everything for Shabbos. And on Friday night, my father started to make Kiddush with his talented voices. And it was very, very beautiful. It was very, very touchy. And we made the Kiddush, and then we cut the challah, we made the moitzi, and we had always, we had our own wine. You know, my mother used to make, they call it med, the name of the wine from raisins. She used to make it, you know, and no, from raisins and something else. And we had everything. It was very especially for Shabbos. We had everything in the world. Our whole week was a little bit different because it was a very, very difficult time, and with a lot of children. And the father was a shoemaker, and he made a living, but you know, it was never enough because the kids were growing up, and we needed more. So I started, and my 2 brothers, they worked before me, the elderly brothers, Laser and Moshe.
What did they do?
They worked. They worked by this friend, a brother who's on the wall there. By this here brother, he was, I don't know what you call it here, but he made the tops for the shoes, the leather parts for the shoes, for boots and for shoes. So they worked with by her brother, Ostrinskis they call it. Dina, this is one of the sisters from the buses.
Tell us about your mother.
My mother, she was a very, very nice lady. Her family was mostly living in Russia, in Leningrad. She had part of her family. And she worked so hard, and she tried to make everything from little things. She made very big things. Like we shouldn't be feeling that we are not that rich, that we cannot afford things. She always made us to feel that we got everything. She worked so hard. You know, for Friday. For Friday, she used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to the butcher and to buy the meat what she can afford, and the best, and that was fresh killed kosher meat. And there was no refrigeration, there was nothing there. The only thing is, what you wanted to have fresh stuff, you had to go when they killed and they made ready and they made kosher everything. And that was where she started up 3 o'clock in the morning. And we had a little basement in the house. Was not a basement, was digged out the ground. It was from ground, was no walls. Was digged out, and the steps was digged out like steps, but it was clay. We made from the ground, we made like shelves, you know, chopped out from the ground. We made shelves, and my mother used to cook and put everything there because it was nice and cool there, and it was very nice cool. We didn't have no refrigeration or anything like that, but she wanted to save all the good things, and she put away some food, but she made it for Shabbos. That should be for another few days. And in the fall, she used to make all kind of preserves, you know, like desserts and pickles, and she used to make corned beef. She used to buy and preserve it in a couple of barrels, small barrels. She used to put them in to make it ferment the way it should be, you know, with all the seeds what you have to put in the preservatives, you know. And she was always worried and always worked so hard. And especially in the winter time, when she washed the clothes, was so hard. We didn't have we had water, but we didn't have no water going down. Okay.
Where did you get your water?
Well, water was coming in the house, but nothing go down. We had to take out, was a pail under the sink, and when you washed your face or used the water, and it went in the pail, and then you had to take it outside and spill it out. And then we, for the rest of the week was very, very difficult for the mother, because she used to work so hard and try to prepare and make the food and everything. We had an oven, was very, very big, like in a baker shop, and she used to bake your own bread for your own challahs for Yom Tov, and she used to put in a clay jar, a big one, a very big one with a small head, and she made coffee, just for coffee. We had water boiling in the samovar for tea, but this was coffee, and she used to put it in the oven, and that used to stay 24 hours. And on Shabbos for breakfast, after the shul, we come and she took out they call it a lac, and she took out that coffee, and it smelled so beautiful, and the atmosphere was so nice because she prepared so much things. She used to bake your own strudel, your own Purim. She used to make her own Hammentaschen and everything, and it was really, really, really beautiful.
How was the oven fueled?
The oven was fueled with wood, but the wood, we didn't have a place where to keep it. It was outside, and it was most of the time was wet, and it didn't burn good. So we took in the house, we put somewhere in a corner there by the place where we go down the basement, and to keep it dry, especially for Shabbos, when she used for the oven. A whole week we had a thing what went on naphtha gas. A naphtha gas, they call it kerosene. And we had a little thing like that, and for the morning we were little kids, we go to school, she used to make the coffee, and there she used to make on that, and she always tried to make the lunches for the school for us. She had so much work to do to prepare for 7 kids, and when I wanted to say something before, when she used to wash the clothes, and this was the hardest day for her of the week, I would say of the life, especially in the winter time, because when she washed the clothes, she used to put on the stove, on top of the stove, she used to put a black pot, I forgot the name of the material, a steel pot, and inside was white, completely white. The facing inside was beautiful, and she used to boil all the clothes. She used to boil it for a certain time, and then after she boiled it, she took it out, and she used to go to the lake and rinse it. And we used to go and help her. And she used
How
to
far
go.
was the lake?
The lake was about, I would say, a couple of miles.
How did you get there?
We walked. It was, we lived, the highway was very high, and we lived below the highway from this side, and from the other side of the highway was the lake. And this lake, they called it Dvina, and this lake was very long. She went into the Baltic Sea in Riga. That lake went in Baltic Sea because it was a very big lake. It looked like the width of the Lake Ontario, or something like that. And it was very, very difficult and very hard for the mother. But the nicest thing was, when every Thursday my father used to take all the 6 sons. We used to go to make what they call it, the bath. Yeah, we didn't have nothing of this. We didn't have nothing of this in the house. No hot water, nothing where to take a bath. But we went in a special place. We had to buy tickets and had to go there. And my father, when he went in this steam bath, they call it, okay? But it's very, very old-fashioned. It was very, very beautiful, very old. The chairs we were sitting, the benches, was really, really old wood. And the first thing my father used to do, he used to come in the steam bath, and was a chimney there. He used to take a bucket of water and pour it in the chimney, and then all the steam came out, because there was hot coal all the time, was red coal, and we should get nice and clean. And he used to work so hard to wash us when we were clean. And later on, the older brother, he used to help washing the second one, the third one, and that's how we managed to live the very, very hard life.
What describe your house. What was the house?
The
How big
house
it?
was a wooden house, like a farmhouse, okay? But a wooden house, a very simple house, and it had only 2 rooms. In 2 rooms, and the small area where the oven was. In the night, my father had a bedroom with my mother, and the sister had a bed beside there. And all the 6 brothers we had in the other room. In the daytime was a dining room with a table. And in the night, we put out the mattresses. The mattresses was made from the sacks from the sugar, because it was thick and strong. My mother made the mattresses, and we put out the mattresses on the floor, and that was our bedroom. And in the morning, when we had to get up and go to school, was a breakfast, a dining room. The table was set, and the things was on the table and everything. You never knew that 6 boys lived and slept in this room during the time it was needed.
What time did you get up?
Well, we get up, the school started at 9 o'clock, and we get up at 7. And when I went to school, was a Jewish factory on the way where I was, where they made all the corned beef and all the salami, the kosher stuff. It was a very, very beautiful place. The whole place was from white tiles, and the smell when you pass by that store, it was unbelievable. It got you right away, the feeling of a good food. So I asked my mother, and she always gave me 25 groschen. And I took a piece of bread, and I went in that place, and I bought a little bit salami, something, to enjoy it a little bit, the good stuff. And it was very, very beautiful. And then when I went to school, I was very relaxed already, because I know I have my lunch. I'm not going to be hungry, and I was concentrating on my learning. I didn't go far. I went, I think it was seventh grade, because I had to stop, because I had to go and try to make something easier for my father for keeping up the things what we need for the house and for the kids and everything.
Describe your clothing. How were you dressed?
We were dressed very simple and very beautiful. My sister, she went in a school. She had to have a uniform. She had a blue uniform, a blue dress, and with straps, like and a white blouse, And the boys, they were wearing whatever you had, whatever you were, was nothing special, as long as you were reasonably clean, Well, very.
What was the Jewish community like in Dvinsk? What organizations were there?
Well, the Jewish community was very, very active under the circumstances what they could serve. You understand? Because it was a lot. Was very few wealthy people what they helped out. One I know wasn't far from us living. Was his name Kagan? I still remember. And he had a brewery from beer. That was the only brewery in the city, And in the summertime, the people used to go by there on little chairs and tables who could afford it, and sit down and drink a beer straight from the factory. They come out with the bottles, you know, and they served the people the thing. And it was, he did a lot of things for the Jewish community. They helped so much, you know, to people with learning and with equipment what we need, you know. They tried to learn. Most families, they tried when you had boys to learn like in a cheder, you know, but it wasn't like here. You went in a cheder. It was a teacher, and he had about 7 or 8 students, and they tried to teach him the Jewish way of life, the Jewish things.
What were relations like between the Jews and non-Jews in Dvinsk?
The relations between the Jews and non-Jews wasn't very, very good. It was very anti-Semitic feelings, very, very, very much, because they always pointed, you know, when a Jewish boy, you know, and he was going with payers and things like that, you know, and dressed like a Jew, or they passed by a synagogue, and they saw the people with the talesim, you know, outside, and on the holidays, you know, when in the summertime when it's hot, and this always was pointed and saying bad words, you know. It was very, the people there was very, very not friendly to the Jewish community.
Did you wear pays?
Pardon?
Did you wear pays?
No. My father was religious. We were religious, but no, we weren't that orthodox. But it was religious. Everything was kosher. Everything was kept in the house.
Do you recall any anti-Semitic incidents that affected you personally?
Well, I was when I was a kid. I was once on a soccer game. And it came a Jewish team, and I forgot what they were called, and they played the soccer. That was on a Saturday. It wasn't far from our house, was the stadium, and we went to see that, and Hagiba, I think, was the name from the Jewish group, the Jewish team, Hagiba, I think. And it happened that they won, you know, at that time when I was there, and they started to be aggressive, you know, against the Jewish people, because it was a Jewish team, you know. But in average, you know, it was very, very hard. It wasn't a democratic country. You know, that whoever was there, they should know that he has that same right as everybody. Jewish people, they always was a third-class citizen in this country.
Were there restrictions on your movements?
It wasn't restrictions on the movement, but it wasn't easy when you read out the name and they know that you had to go to the government places and achieve some kind of documents or some kind of things, you know. It wasn't easy.
Just going to pause for a moment. Tape 2, NISON CISS. Tell me about your brothers and your sisters.
Well, I had only one sister and we were 6 brothers. And the best time of our life was on a Saturday, after my mother worked so hard to make Shabbos. And she made a tune, and she made the food, and she made everything so proudly and so thoughtful and so all the effort what she giving in this, it showed when we enjoyed the beautiful Shabbos meal. And after the meal we were already full, everything was so nice, and then the boys, we went out to play outside, football or something like that, soccer, we played. And the sister went to visit her girlfriend, and the father and the mother said, now we need a rest. And we had outside on the windows, we had those louvers, what do you call it? Louvers, where you close, the sun shouldn't come in.
Blinds.
Not blinds, outside.
Oh, outside, shutters.
Shutters. We had shutters, and they asked us to close the shutters. It should be nice and cool, and they got a nap for 2-3 hours, whatever. And we went to the park, and we played soccer, and we played all kind of other activities because we were enjoying it and appreciated the hard work from our parents. And it was really, really touchy moments, because we knew that we left our parents to have a nice sleep after so hard work, and my father used to work so hard to make ends meet, and his responsibility, he was well known and he was well liked in the shul and at his job, what he did.
How did you conclude Shabbat at the end of the day?
Okay. In the end of the day, we were in the shul for the prayers, for the evening prayers, and then we came home all together with my father, and my father made Havdalah, and it was very beautiful. With his beautiful voice, he made Havdalah and everything, and everybody stand around. My sister was beside the mother, and the brothers was beside the father. It was really, really beautiful. And we sing some kind of a Hebrew songs, and to continue in a happy, joyful evening to celebrate the beautiful Shabbos, which we were waiting a whole week for it.
Tell us about your father's work. What did he do?
My father was a shoemaker. He fixed shoes and he made new ones. The most specialized was in his trade was the boots, the high boots for the officers, for the police and for the officers from the military. Only for the officers, because it was a very special style. This was dedicated to that thing, and he used to make it to measure. It was completely very start from nothing till that. He used to have his own forms made from wood. The forms from the boot, he used to have it made from wood. The form from the foot, and the sizes from all kinds of sizes to fit the customers.
Where did he work?
He had a little place. He rented a little place on a street not far from us. It was like going down in not on the upper floor, but in the basement floor, because it was cheaper and it was affordable, and that's where he was working.
And what were his relations like with the non-Jewish customers?
Well, he was very friendly. He was very friendly. He tried not to talk about anything, because when you start to talk about anything, you start disagreeing and things, But he had a good reputation, a very good reputation. He had customers coming from very far. There was other shoemakers that used to come to him,
So after your bar mitzvah, what happened? First, describe your bar mitzvah. Tell us
Well,
about
bar
your
mitzvah was very simple. Was in that shul where my father was conducting his services voluntarily without anything that he got for it. Just he was happy to do it, you know. And was on a Shabbos, and they called me up to the Torah reading and everything. And all the neighbors and all the members, they brought little treats, what they made their own at home. And they brought it. It's not like here, you order a meal, you sit down and have a full course meal and everything. They brought lekker and sponge cake and cookies and drinks, you know. And it was very, very nice. Wasn't a huge place, but wherever anybody could sit down was served at table. One table was served, and the rest, all the people sit down in the places where they used to pray, because it wasn't special dining room, or I mean special hall where they celebrate things. You know.
Can you describe the synagogue?
The synagogue was very, very, very beautiful. It was very old. You know, you come in, had the feeling that is thousands of years was this created. You know, it was really, really, really touchy. The onkoides and the cover and everything. I forgot what you call that. And it was really, really, it was donated by many, many people who could afford it, because that was a very artistic and very special design for it. It was really beautiful.
What was the Aaron Kodesh made of?
Pardon?
Describe the Aaron Kodesh. What was it made out of?
It's made of, the cover was from velvet, you know, like we call it, was velvet, and the beautiful gold color words put in there. Was everything done by hand, and everything was with the fringes on the bottom, gold color, beautiful. And the onkoides was made for very shiny, dark red wood. It was very with round pillars, they call it pillars. Pillars, yeah, round pillars. It was really beautiful. And when they opened the onkoides, the curtain was just touching the pillars. It was really, really beautiful, you know.
How many people did the synagogue hold? How big was it?
It was maybe about 150. It wasn't big.
Where were the women?
The woman was covered a space beside, inside. Was
all
covered,
on one floor?
All on one floor, yeah. Was covered, a small place there for women with curtains, with solid curtains, not to see through. With brass iron bars, you know, to hang up the curtains. Was brass, was so beautiful. Brass, very, very clean, nice brass, shiny brass. It was like old stuff. It was really, really beautiful.
And what do you remember about holidays? What's your favorite memory of a holiday at the shul?
Well, the holiday, they started to call up people who are talented, who spoke. They had speeches, and they spoke about the situation, what we knew around the world, you know, like there was people who were more involved with the general public, you understand, and they knew more about the situation, about the Jewish people around the world and what's happening in Israel. At that time, with the aliyahs, with the illegal aliyahs, so people went. Some kids from my neighbors, they went, you know. At that time, they went to Israel, a few, you know. And,
when was that?
That was in 1937 or something like that.
Did you have people coming from the outside to speak to you, from Palestine?
Well, it was one time, what I remember, was coming the cantor Moise Kusevitsky for a concert. And that was in a very big shul. Our shul was a neighborhood small shul, and that shul was a very, very big, I would say, the size of the Holy Blossom. and it was very, very big in a town like this.
About how many people would it hold?
Could you hold about 500 people, maybe? Very big, nice, and it was from solid stone, light gray stone, very, very beautiful design, you know. And I remember at that time when Moise Kusevitsky came from America to give a concert. It was really, and my father did everything in the world to get tickets. They should all go in here. That was a big, big luxury, because he knew far advance that he's coming, you know.
You got the ticket?
Yes, and we all went to.
What do you remember about that concert?
It was really, really, really amazing, you know. You know what, I'll tell you that after that we went and we bought records, and that back home was a record player, wasn't like here, you know. It was a record player, you had to wind it with the hand. There was no electricity, and we heard Moise Kusevitsky's voice. It was really, really beautiful, really appreciated. It was really touching.
What other kind of news were you getting from outside?
From outside, there used to be newspapers. Yeah, it was a Jewish newspaper. Used to be newspapers. We knew mostly we had a radio. If you had a good radio, you were a rich man. You understand? Because a good radio, we had a good radio. And we heard news and everything, you know. And then the brothers, when they got older, you know, they tried to accumulate some records, you know, to hear those Jewish songs, the Jewish beautiful opera singers and everything.
What songs do you remember? What are the songs you used to listen to?
Well, mostly everything what the old fashion stuff.
Do you remember any of the names?
A Yiddish Mame and wie heißt der Mazel Tov was a beautiful wedding song, you know, and then was quite a few, you know. It was really, really nice. It was very, very appreciated, you know, when we put on the records and to listen to that, you know. I very appreciate to who got it for us, you know. It was really, really something, because that time there was no television. Even a good radio, you couldn't afford, you know, because the standard of living was very, very, very low. And in the winter time was so cold, you know, and sometimes the blizzard was so strong, you know. It wasn't there like here. They come and they clean the streets. You could walk on the sidewalk. By us, the whole winter they never cleaned the snow on the sidewalk. You know, they used to throw coal from the furnace. They used to throw coal on the sidewalk to be able to walk, not to fall. And they piled up so high. And then in the springtime, the warm weather started to evaporate this. But it was very, very hard life.
How did you keep warm in the winter?
In the winter we had one oven where, first of all, on Shabbos was the warmest evening what we had, because the mother had the oven going. And then it was one that was in the side of our place where we had the dining room where we boys used to sleep. And the parents' room was an oven from tiles, and they call a tall one that's right up to the ceiling there, you know. And they used to put in some. Sometimes used to use. They call it torf. Torf. It's like pressed stuff what they find in the woods, and it's like the size of a brick, you know. It's not coal, but it's some kind of wooden stuff that we put in this, and that kept very, very long and very warm, you know. We used to buy this stuff.
Where were the bathrooms?
The bathrooms, that was unspeakable. unbearable and unspeakable. That was outside. You had to go, if somebody had to go in the washroom, you had to go outside. I would say about 200 feet. And you had to go outside from the warm bed, whatever, how warm it was, to go outside. You had to get dressed and be outside. It was very, very uncomfortable and very, very miserable, especially in the winter time.
Is there anything else that you recall from the time before the war, from your life, that you would like to add?
Wow, we used to go, my father had a few brothers. We used to go visiting, and they used to come visiting to us, and we used to go visiting to them.
Where were they? Where did they live?
They lived the same in Dvinsk, yeah. And we were in contact as much as we could,
Did you ever get together for holidays?
Yeah. We used to go together. Sometimes in their place, and sometimes they come to us.
A Seder?
Yes.
What was the Seder like?
The Seder was very, very, very beautiful. If you would have that time a movie camera or something, it would be very beautiful to see it. It's like the really, really old times, and we never finished that till 3 in the morning. It was done, because we started late. Really, we started late, and because the main ceremonies was at midnight. I used to say that was very, very late, almost all night.
What time did you start?
Well, we started around 9 o'clock, but this was only talking about the whole, they call it the Agoda, they explain every word what's written in the Agoda, and that you should understand what's all about, and it was really, really pleasant.
So when did life begin to change?
Well, life for us, you mean, for the Jew? For us, especially for us, was when we got a little bit older, We got a little bit older, and my sister, she finished school, and she got a job as just before the war broke out, about 4 or 5 months. She got a job. We were so happy for her. She was a sales lady in a ladies' lingerie store, and that was on the main street where the railroad station was. It's called Rigas Ielas in Latvian. The Riga Gas.
Is that the street?
The street name, yes, Rigas Ielas in Latvian. Jela is a street, Rigas Ielas. And she was very happy. It was a very respectable, it's like a young street you go in, it's not even, not young street, it wasn't that nice as there was really like you go in a beautiful city, in the main street, you go in Ottawa in the main sections there. And she was very happy, and she was supposed to get married, not, if the war wouldn't work out, she would get married.
And your brothers, what were they doing?
They were working.
Where were they working?
As I said, they're working in my landsman. The picture is there.
And you were working at this time?
Yeah, I was working at a tailor shop. It was 2 brothers. It was 2 brothers and a mother. And these 2 brothers, they were very, very nice to me. But what was it? When you went in a tailor shop to learn how to work there, to teach you from nothing to make you a tailor, you had to do all kind of jobs. You had to do the worst things that you can expect, because they didn't pay you, and you didn't pay them for about a year, just for teaching this. And those two brothers, they had a mother, and she was ill, and she was paralyzed. And many times I had to go inside and attend what I had to do to make everything right. It wasn't pleasant, but I had to do it, and I was happy, and I didn't say nothing because they were very good to me. They taught me, and it was very nice. After 6 months, I was, I would say, graduated from them, and they realized that I'm so good. They hired. I knew for 6 months when I was working, I knew as much somebody can work 3 years, because I was very catchy. I catched everything so fast. So they hired another boy, and I was already on top, and they started to pay me already, and it was very nice, very beautiful. As a matter of fact, when the last part before we got free, I was with one of the brothers marching out from the concentration camp, and he was behind me, and he couldn't walk anymore. He was walking for 3 weeks, nights and days, and he fell down, and the guards, the SS guards, they put the dog on him, and they ripped out his neck, and that was one of my bosses. I was really shocked to see that. I was really upset and really touchy.
So, when did you begin to hear of problems? When did life begin to change in terms of the war?
The war. Well, it was around Pesach time.
What year?
It's 1941. We hear that the Germans already are in Poland, here in Poland, there, and we're not far from that, you know. And in a few months, we heard all the news, and that they're going in here and they're going in there. We heard everything, you know, and then a couple of months later, they were close to our doorstep.
Did you have any knowledge before 1941? I mean, what did you know about what was happening to the Jews outside of Latvia?
No, we didn't know.
You didn't know?
No.
Had anyone come into Dvinsk from other places,
well,
refugees or anything?
No, they didn't come refugees. There used to come people from other countries to visit relatives, you know, like I had an uncle in the States. You know, he used to send parcels for Passover, special for Pesach. He used to say, he send clothes for us, and he used to send money for Pesach to make Pesach. You shouldn't be short in anything. He used to get a couple $100. You know, that was a fortune of money that time, and everything was very joyful, very beautiful. My father's brother was living in the States, but when I got free, I tried to find. I couldn't find it. It's a long time. He wasn't living. He wasn't alive. But I didn't know the kids. Or he had kids. He didn't have kids. I don't know.
So in 1941, after Pesach,
yes.
What happened?
Well, it started already hearing that the Germans are occupying this, and the Germans are occupying this place in Poland, around, you know, and that they're coming closer to take everything, wherever the aggressive are, wherever they go for it. They are going so fast, you know, that they. In a couple of months, they were close to us, and then we felt about 3 days, 3 days before before they come into us, they were on the side of the other side of the river, you know. And 3 days later, before they came in, the Germans, the Latvians started to kill Jewish people in the street. My neighbor was a boy. He went to the bakery to get a bread or something. He never come back. They found him dead. And the Latvians, they put on the swastikas on the armbands. They put on the swastikas and they start to go around and to beat up Jewish people and kill some of them.
Was this the first time you'd had this kind of trouble with the Latvians?
That was, well, they felt like that they are Germans, that they are not Latvians. That their victory came, you know. When the Germans came in, they were waiting for it.
Wait.
They took him in with open arms, the Germans.
Were there any restrictions or any restrictive laws in place at that time?
Well, at that time it was only short. About 3 days later, they came in across the river and they came into us, and then they started. As I say, we ran away. We wanted to run away. We went to the train station and we got in on a train. It's not a passenger train, but call it they carried all kind freight trains, yes. And we went on the train and they said that the train will take us to the border, near the Russian border. So it wasn't far, I don't know, maybe 150 kilometers or something like that. And the end was that the guy who was in charge of the locomotive, he drove us off about 8 or 10 miles. He drove us off from the city, and he left. The train stopped, and we didn't know what it was, but the reason was that he put on fire the locomotive and he ran away, and then we were sitting there for 3-4 hours, and we started to hear the names and the voices of German language, you know. So they said in here is the verfluchte Juden. They said in German, you know, and it was very, very. We saw that this is the end of us, and they took us out and they put us on the ground. They started to count and this and that, and the city was burning from the war.
Which city?
Dvinsk, yes, it was burning. It was destroyed, almost everything.
How many people were on the train?
And the train was a couple of thousand people.
And they took them all out?
Yes, they put them all out and they put them on the field there, and they started to guard it, and then they took away the younger ones, my 3 brothers. They took away their time.
Which brothers?
Moishe, Laser, and Shmuel. They took away, and they assembled them on a place where they used to make the parades for the holidays, you know, like the Civic Square or something like that, you know, and they put him there, and then they took him away from there, and we didn't know where they put him.
We're just going to pause and continue on the next tape.
Okay.
Tape 3, NISON CISS, September 13th, 1995. Please continue. You were telling us about what happened after you were taken off the train.
Okay. We were to continue from that horror we went through. So when they took away my brothers and they assembled all the people there on the big field, and to us they said, to the rest of the people, they said to go in the city, to go in the city. The city was burning. We didn't have where to go, nothing. So we found one building was burned down already, but the basement was okay. And so we went down to the basement. Was me and my sister and my Rochel and my brother Zalman and Chaim and me, Nisan, and my father. And we went down there and we stayed a couple of days, and we didn't have what to eat, and it was a basement, a burned down building.
Where was your mother?
The mother was with us.
Oh, she was with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, the mother was, and then the sister and the two brothers, and the three older brothers, they took them away, and they said they killed them right away. They took them out of the city and they killed them.
Who told you this?
What?
How did you find out that they'd been killed?
Because there was people, not Jewish people, who said they saw what they did. Yes, and then they start to take us. They put up signs and they went around and they're speaking on loudspeakers with propaganda things that we should all come to a place where they can get us, all the Jewish people who remain in the city. They should all come out on the field, on the same field and the same where they took away the young people first, and and we had to come all together till they got us all together. We went in. They took us. They said they're going to take us away. They took us to a place where it was a very, very old place from the army. It was a place for the cavalry. They kept the army horses there, and it was out of the city. Maybe about 10 kilometers away. And it was lots of places. There was underground. What all the ammunitions what they had was a very, very historical place, because they said that if they get Dvinsk, if they get Dvinsk surrendered, the military, they're gonna go farther without any problems, because Dvinsk was counted as a strategic military old stronghold, So they made where the barracks was from the horses there, the big blocks of buildings from the horses, the stables, okay, and they made the ghetto there. They made the ghetto there, and they brought us all in there. They made where the horses were standing, they made rolls of I don't know how they call it, to lie people on it. How do you call it?
Like platforms?
Platforms, okay. Three floors high. They made platforms, 1, 2, 3, and two people to lie on that from the floor. I would say about 2 feet from the floor and up, three rolls high, and they put the people in there. All the people, thousands of them was there.
Who was guarding you?
This compound was fenced around. It wasn't an open compound, because this compound is very, very old, from the old Russian, old military things. It's very, very, very strong compound there, and was a fence, a stone fence, maybe 2 feet thick, and I don't know, was very high, and And then was a main gate when it was the SS had a booth there, and the SS had there whenever they brought people, they had to check at the trucks, and when people went out, they checked it there. So they put us in the place there, and we were together with my mother and my sister and the two brothers. We were on the one place. We didn't have much clothes. They didn't give you nothing. Whatever we had with us, we had to put underneath as a mattress or a jacket or whatever, or something to cover us. And then they called out to go the specialists what they wanted for work. So they come in the big hall, in the big place where the barrack is, and they called on a microphone, who is a tailor, who is a shoemaker, who is a jewelry repairman, or who is a photographer, or who is something else, you know. And they called out, and people lift up the arm, and they called them over, and they spoke to them, and they told them what. Then they put him. Some people came, all the Germans in the German officers, they came, and whatever they needed help to work around the city, whatever for them or for the city work or for the clean up the mess there and everything. So they come in there, and they said they want 50 people or 100 people. They want 5 tailors and 2 shoemakers and this compound and this compound. And they took people, and we went to work. But we went with a guard. The assessment with a machine gun. He was guarding us. We never went by ourselves.
So who went? Where did you go? Where did you work?
We went in the city where we had a place where they took us there, and we worked, and we come.
Who worked?
Back.
You and who?
I worked. My father was working. That time I was only me and my father was working. That time my mother, my sister, and the 2 little brothers was in the compound there. And one day they made an appel. They start to they call it an appel. They call it counting of the people. You know, they start to count the people, and then they made 2 lines, left and right. So when they made the 2 lines, left and right, we started to think this is no good already. So they made left and right. So for left, they put the people who they needed, and for the right, who people they wanna destroy. So near us, where we were standing, there was a couple standing, a husband and a wife, and they said to the husband, they said to go to the right, to the left, and she remained in the right. And when they told him to go to the right, she started to scream. And she started to yell and started to cry, and she was pregnant, maybe 7-8 months pregnant, and she started to rip her hair, and emotion. She was so emotional. She was so. It was unbelievable. And then she started to run to the husband, no matter what. So the assessment took me the big machine gun, with the heavy machine gun they had, with the round bullet, the round casing. There was, I don't know, 120 bullets, whatever. I don't know how many there, and with the heavy thing, it gave her a bang in the stomach, and she lost the baby right on the spot there. It was so unbelievable. It was so touchy, so scary, and so unbelievable. And then they took her away because she was almost like dead, you know. and the husband had to stay there, and then me, my father, they called out then, and we had to go to the left side too, and my father and my mother and my sister, my two brothers, they remained there, and we went to work. And we went to work. We come after the day. We come back in the ghetto. We didn't stay there. We came there, and when we came back, we saw it was usually you hear noises, people, crying, talking, people walking in the ghetto. They're taking people walking around, cleaning up, the streets, whatever, the compounds. People going here with they used to carry the carriages, like Fiddler on the Roof, with that kind of carriages, They used to carry around stuff from one block to the other, and they started to make the people work, and then they started to do all kind of things. But we saw when we came back was so unusual. It was unbelievable, this, because we saw right away that something is wrong. It's too quiet in there. And we came into the gates. We saw pieces of bodies from children, a head, an arm, I have a hip, I have a this. What they did, they liquidated the ghetto at that time, and they took everybody away. And they had we found out later that there was a summer resort. They call it Pogulanka. That was a summer resort, and they made a grave there. They opened a grave, I would say about 500 feet by 100 feet. And when they killed the people, they took him over there, and they undressed him and they brought him on trucks, and they unloaded them and they put them beside the grave, and they killed them there, and they fell. They fell inside. Some were alive, some was dead right away, some was still alive. And in the end of their mission, they put the white stuff, they call it kalch, the burning stuff, and it shouldn't smell. And people were still lying there. Some of them was lying there dead, already from the first shot. And some, you understand, when they put that, so some people it gets right away, some is injured, and they were still lying and suffer. And they put that stuff, they call it kalch, I don't know what they call it here. It's very, I used to put this around the trees back home, around the fruit trees. I used to put it on banner for the bugs, not to come. I used to make it like a paint and smear it, the bark. So anyways, and then they had it open, the thing, till they ended up with all of them killed, all the people. And then they closed the ghetto, they eliminated the ghetto, and us, the people, we were there about, from all kind tradesmen, we were about 60, 70 people. They made a compound in the city, was a big building, I think 3 floors was a big building, and they had we were working the factories there, everything, and they made us to stay there, and to work.
How long were you in the ghetto? What were the dates that you were in the ghetto?
In the ghetto wasn't long, because that wasn't long. They was a couple of months. They didn't keep it long.
So when did you go into the ghetto?
That was in the July already. June the 26th we got free, and then in the ghetto a week later, whatever it took, and we went in the ghetto. But it wasn't long. We were there, I think, was one winter. One winter we were there.
In the ghetto?
One winter we were there in the ghetto, and I remember it was so horrible, so horrifying. It was so, because it was It was the next year. It wasn't in the same year already.
Now, when was the liquidation?
The liquidation was the next year. In 42.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was when your sister and your mother were taken.
Yes. And we remained in the city compound, and we were working there, and they made a special place, and we were working there, and we slept there.
What describe where you stayed in the city?
It was a building. It was guarded by SS all around. We couldn't go out, nothing. We couldn't go any place. And we were working there, all kind tailors, shoemakers, all kind photographers, and all kind jewelry men. Whatever they had to fix, they had trades for everything, electricians and all kind of things. They had tradesmen left so much on this. One day, this I forgot to tell you yesterday, and I'm going to remember now. This is very, very important. This is an unbelievable thing. And this is such a historical thing. They came from a city like from here to Hamilton. They call it Rezece. The city, a small city called Rezece. And there was a compound with German soldiers and officers, a whole setup there. And they needed a tailor. And they came to our place where I was working, and they wanted a tailor to make a suit for a general, a military suit. And I was working at that time, by my tailor, I was working for a year and something. I was working, and I was so good that I watched what he's doing. When I went by him and asked him things what has to do with the work, I looked what he's doing. When he cutting something and designing something, I was watching him, and it got in my head, So when they came from that Rezekne, from that city, for a tailor, they needed a tailor to take over there to making a suit, and they picked me. I was only about 17 and a half years old, but I was tall and skinny. I looked a little bit older. So they took with a limousine. They took me from the place where I was, and they put me in the back seat, and 2 SS from both sides, and I was in the middle, and the chauffeur. And they took me to that place. That's what I forgot to tell you yesterday. I reminded overnight. And they took me to that place. It was a ruined city. And they were almost just this building where they had the officers there, I mean the general there, the whole compound there was okay. So they brought me there. They put me in a burned down front a store. Was a street, looked like this was a commercial street, and it was all stores burned down. And they put me in a store. The windows was covered with plywood and things like that. And they said, "You're gonna stay here." They locked it. They made it, They didn't guard me there, but they fixed it up that I shouldn't be able to escape. Who would I escape? I couldn't escape anyway because all Germans surround me. You understand? So I went in this company. I stayed overnight, and the next morning they come, open up the door, and they took me to the compound where the general is, and I had to make a suit for the general. They took me in to that compound, and they took me up. A Jew, I wasn't dressed like whatever I had to dress. I didn't have no clothes, nothing, garbage, schmattes I had. So they took me into that compound, and the general was sitting in a corner there with Hitler's picture, big, maybe 6 foot by 4, so huge, with the German flag from both sides. And the assistant who took me in was with 2 stars, with 2 squares. This next to a general was his assistant, and he said in German, he says, the Schneidermeister in German, he said. And he told me what he wants, that he wants to make a suit. And I said, okay. Then I started, he showed me the material, and he gave me the material. And I never in my life cut a suit. To make, I knew how to work on it. But to cut, I never knew. But when my boss was cutting, I was standing, sometimes asking questions, special coming to ask questions, just to see what he's doing. And because I was very interested, I wanted to know. And I catched a little bit. And he gave me a jacket. I took his measurement there, the general, and he gave me a uniform to look what he wants. And I measured the uniform, all the places, whatever you have to do, and I designed on a paper myself, which that was the first time in my life I did a thing like this. And I undertook that job. If I would spoil it, my head would go right away. So finally, it's nothing finished yet. So I took the measurements from him, and I knew how to take the measurements, what to take, because the pants was the ones which has the not straight pants, but the tight here, with the German green-blue stripes, the big one on each side, about 1.25 inches each side, and in the middle a small one for the special pants. And the jacket was with a hard collar, with uniform, with the lapel, with the pockets, with the pipings, with everything. And the whole jacket was made, I had to make glue, to glue the canvas on it, because this is a military thing, and it has to be with the big busts, the busts. So both sides was buttons, the gold buttons. And I didn't have to make the glue. I asked for some flour, and I used to make that by my boss. And I made the glue. It had to be so smooth, no bubbles, so smooth. Because when you put on the glue, you had to press it with the iron, and everything had to be so smooth, like no glue, like it's natural. You understand? Very beautiful. And I made it, everything worked out beautiful, fine. I made the first trial. I came in, and he escorted me, the assistant general escorted me, and I tried him on the jacket. The first trial was very plain and simple, but to see if it fits, if it's nice. He put it on, and I put him on the pants for a trial, and it was really, really, really good. I was so happy that time, that I was scared that they're going to kill me. Anyways, it was beautiful. Then I came, I took it, measured everything fine. I come to the place where I was working, and another 3-4 days, I came again for a try on the second time. The second time was already with the old trimmings, with the pockets, with the buttons. It was so beautiful. And the pants was almost finished, just the linings and this to finish up, things like that. And he put it on, and he was so proud. He had a mirror in the corner, a 3-way mirror. And when he stays in one position, you can see all around him. It was unbelievable, And I was so proud of that time, a young kid from 17.5 years old, with a brain that I used it, but God gave me this. It was unbelievable. And one second, may I say something else? And then when I tried him on, I went home, and then in a couple of days later, I brought him home. This is very, very touching, very historic, what I'm going to tell you. And I brought him the suit. It was completely finished, pressed, beautiful, nice. He put it on. It was like you put on a figure in a showcase, and it stays there, no finger, no hand touched it, you understand? And then he put it on, and he was so proud, he was so happy. He said to the assistant, he's a big man, he says, "It is beautiful, it is unbelievable," in German. And he says, "You know what?" He says, "You go down to the canteen." You know what's a canteen? where they get the food, the stuff where they buy, you know, where they get this food, the cigarettes, the whiskeys and the stuff and like this. He says, go down in Germany, he said, geh runter and bring a present for the Schneidermeister, they called me. And he brought a big box. The box was like almost like a Chesterfield size. It was, I would say, 4 feet long and 3 feet high. Packed with food, with everything in the world, whiskey. I had there a case, he put in Lithuanian vodka, and honey, and ham, cans of ham and everything. The appreciation for making such a beautiful job. When I came there, the 60, 70 people who was in that compound had to eat for a month. And it was so beautiful thing. They were so hungry, so skinny, so they couldn't breathe. And they had a spoonful of something they touched in their mouth, and that was the end of this story. Then it's going to come later more.
What happened?
You're gonna have to stay all day.
How long did you stay in the compound?
It's going to go on
When
I mean it's going to go on for long enough to
well, just how long were you in the compound? How many?
In the compound I was for a couple of years.
Okay.
Okay. In compound I was till springtime 1944.
Okay. And what happened then?
Then they had to move. They had to move from this city to. They went so far. They took around so far places. They had to move from there. They transferred them to a different place. They had to move away. And they dismantled that compound. Okay.
So what happened to you?
Okay, what happened to me and the rest of the 60, 70 people who was in that compound, they took us to the jail. As I told you yesterday, the story. They took us to the jail. And there in the jail was all the Russian, the biggest communists, the biggest, you know, what was against it. They took us in there to stay a day or two till they're going to transfer us to Riga. So they took us in this place, and we stayed there a couple of days. As I told you, I was standing there in the hall. We were standing waiting till they're gonna accommodate us. And I was standing there, and they opened a gate, and they let out a convict. They opened a gate, and the gate was, I would say, no more than 4 feet by 4 feet, and was a steel door. And they let out a convict which touched us so much, everyone, that we thought that that's going to be our end like this. That guy was there, he was on solitary confinement. It was like they put in a chicken coop. And he went out, the clothes was rotted out from his body, only from the middle of the waist till the shoulders he had clothes. The rest was eaten up, and you could see the way the clothes was rotted out. You know, it was not even. It was hanging pieces and pieces like this, and the guy's body was black, like an animal, and then they told him they carried him somewhere. They told him to go. He couldn't walk. He walked on the feet. He walked with the knees down. He walked like he couldn't walk. You know, he couldn't stand up. He couldn't straighten himself because he was there probably for years.
Just going to pause a moment and continue on the next tape.
Thank you.
It's doing just you. Tape 4, NISON CISS, September 13th, 1995. Please continue.
When When I was in that jail, when they took us, before they took us somewhere else for a couple of days, I saw that horror story of that man they took out from the cage. It didn't look like a man, it looked like an animal. I can't prescribe the name for an animal like this because his hair was till the elbows long. And I guess filthy, whatever it is, and you couldn't see our face. To see his face, you had to go over to the front of his face and move the hair away. You know, it was very, very, very touchy and very, I've never seen this. I hope nobody will see this in their whole life. After that, a day later, they came and told us they're going to take us from Dvins, they're going to take us to Riga, Latvia. Riga, Latvia, this is the main city, the capital city of Latvia. They took us there, we came there, it was a big compound was thousands of people, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people there. And they had all kind of crafts, all kind of people there, all kind organized. It was well organized, it was very well kept, very well put together, everything, the places for the people, for the workers, it was a huge place.
Where was it in the city?
That was out in Riga, but it was not in the city, it was outside of the city. And they call it Lenta, that place. Riga, about that factory, and that compound called Lenta.
Could you spell that?
Lenta, Lenta.
And where did you stay in Lenta? What were the quarters like?
We stayed right there.
Were there barracks?
No, it wasn't barracks. It was a big compound, a big, huge compound building.
One building?
Yes. And we stayed there, and was all kind craftsmen, all kind people, all kind young and older. We were there not for long. We were there. Well, it was around April, May. We came May.
And what year was this?
It was 1944. We came there, and we weren't long there, and we stayed there till about the end of August, the beginning of September, and that came out before Rosh Hashanah.
Now, while you were there, just to describe this compound, where did you sleep?
We sleep. They had special rooms. We slept in a bulk on the floor. Yeah, and we worked there. We slept there, and there I had my father. My father was with me.
Your father was with you.
Yes.
What were what kind of food? How were you fed?
The food they fed. They had a kitchen where you had to go for the food. And they give us the food was mostly soup and a piece of bread, and that's about it, you know.
And sanitary facilities?
Sanitary was indoors. Was running water was indoors because this was it's a big city, and around there it's a big everything was.
And
there.
where did you do your work?
The work did special halls there for every tradesman, for every day. They had special rooms, special halls, like a hall for 25 people to work, or a hall for 50 people to work, whatever they needed for every trade. And we worked there everything. We made all kind things, whatever they needed. And then one day they came and they said they're gonna. They called up, was a big hall there where they had the meetings there, and they called up they said all people over 50 all people over 50 should come down to this place. And they took away my father was 52, and my father was there, and that was before Rosh Hashanah, and they took him away, and I was very, very, very touchy, and he was a very big smoker. He used to give away his piece of bread for a little bit of tobacco to have a cigarette. And I had the cigarette. I had his tobacco, a bag of tobacco. I made him a bag from linen. I made him a bag. And he had the tobacco. He could squeeze it. He could put it to tie it up. He could tie it up. He could around the waist, with a string or something like that. He should somehow he forgot this, and I end up with this. And I wanted to give it to him, and I didn't know what to do. Anyway, I found out, and the entrance there, and I tried to go in where they locked them in there because they couldn't get out from there. They were locked in and guarded by SS. And I went in that place there, and I saw him, and he made a face, and he turned unbelievable. His normal skin from the face, it turned black. It turned such a color that I didn't recognize my father in seconds. He says only a couple of words. He says, why did you come in for this? He says, I don't need this, I don't need nothing anymore. He says, but the only thing, maybe God sent you, he says, because if you will be able to go out from here, our name, our family Ciss, will still be in exist. But before that, he was so emotional. He took his hands and he grabbed his cheek and he ripped out pieces of his cheek, the flesh he ripped out. He said, why did you have to come in? Well, because they didn't want to let me out. And somehow, I don't know what happened. It happened that I got out. How did it happen? I can't remember, but it was very, very unbelievable. Especially the circumstances of my father, the way he turned himself like not a human face. He got in a few seconds of that living through this horror what he lived through. And they took him away, and then a couple of weeks later they took out all the people from the Lenta, from the whole compound, and they took him to the concentration camp, to Stutthof. And this was by Danzig, Poland.
How many people were left? How many people were left in Lenta?
Oh, it was a couple of thousand people.
And they took you?
They took us all on a boat, a big boat, in Danzig. They took us from the Riga port. They took us to Danzig.
What kind of
Poland.
boat?
A huge boat, a big boat, not a passenger boat, but a big boat with a couple of floors. And they put in the people in that boat. They told them to run, and they went in the boat, and they were so squeezed together, like sardines. It was like maybe 2,500 people there, and so many. It was so crowded. It was so no food, no nothing for the whole thing that we took to go there. Took overnight. Took overnight to go there. We were going all night. It was a huge ship, and people were dying there on the ship, on the boat. They didn't have what to eat, and they were squeezed together. So the Germans, what they did, somebody died. They took the body and they threw in the sea. You know, this is how it took overnight, and we came to the camp, to the Stutthof. Came to Stutthof, that's by Danzig, and they brought us in, and they had a big gate to come in. They counted or whatever, everybody, they counting everybody coming in, and they had barracks, wooden barracks, and in one barrack was maybe 400 or 500 people.
How big was the camp? How big is Stutthof?
Stutthof there was about, my number was 96,254, and it was coming people after that, and it was maybe about 350,000 people in there.
At one time?
Yes, yes. And then when they brought us in, they gave us a place, and it was just, you know, like a plain barrack, and the beds to sleep was, again, the same thing, was three way high, you know, long things, you know, from wood made, and
How many people slept in a bunk?
in a bunk, it was maybe a couple of hundred people.
No, in each bunk, how many people
In a
slept
bunk
together?
was along from one end barrack to the other, you understand?
Mhm.
And when they put us in, they didn't put it in head to head, they put in head and feet, like sardines, you know, that was unheard of in life. They put us like sardines you take out from a can. They take off less space. Somebody put the feet in my nose, in my face, and so, you understand? And one time I woke up, I felt something tied to my body. Somebody was didn't woke up in the morning. He was dead because there was no food, no nothing, and was suffocated.
Were there any sanitary conditions?
Sanitary conditions was one room, one big room, and was one pipe for water to wash the face, maybe I would say a couple of 100 feet long by as wide as this room, about 14 feet wide, and that was the washroom that you could wash yourself or whatever you want. Cold water, no hot water, but lots of taps. You know, every 2 feet was a tap because lots of people at once came in there, and then the washrooms was there.
So what did you do at Stutthof? Did you work?
Yes. Then they took us to work till everything settled down. Everybody settled down. Then they come around. They took us for work, all kind things. They took me to work. It was a place not. We had to go out from the camp, but it was guards with dogs. This was maybe a half an hour walk, and it was a place on the top of the hill, and we had to work on the bottom of the hill. It was, I would say, maybe 3 times as high as this house. I would say about 30 feet, 28 feet high. Down, we had to go down. What was the job? We had to cut forests, and we had to cut forest. The trees was high, like the big electric poles on the street. If you see, I don't know how many feet that is. Maybe who knows? It's so high, 3-story high, 4-story high. We had to cut these trees and bring it over on top. By people that was so heavy, 40-50 people had to carry this tree up on the hill, and there was trucks standing there. We had to load it on the trucks, and where they took them, I don't know. But we people had to cut the tree and clean up the branches and put the long trees on top of the truck. And every time we came from the day's work finished, we had to carry 6 to 8 people dead from the work. Fell down, we had to carry on our shoulders. And we had to go to the camp and carry on the shoulders and carry to the crematorium. The crematorium was 3 ovens there. Black doors. They used to pull out a door. You came out a frame from metal, and they used to put the body on this in front of our eyes. They used to put on the body on this metal frame and shovel it in the fire. The fire was red as anything. At night you could see the chimney, the fire, you could see out the fire maybe 20, 50, 30 feet high. In the night especially, you could see the fire was flaming like anything. And that was going on from day to day. I went to this place a couple of times. I couldn't get out. At one time I hid myself, and I said I cannot go there anymore because that'll be my end. And I hid myself, and they took me to a different place.
Where did you hide?
What?
When you hid, where did you hide?
In the block. I didn't go out. In the block. I hid it, and they called, and I didn't go out. And I hid it there. After that, another company came and they took me to work somewhere else. What was the company? That was a company what they brought from the war. They brought the clothes. I said I'm a tailor. They brought the clothes from the war. They brought the clothes from the killed, wounded soldiers, the German uniforms, with the train. And they brought them with the boxcars, full of this. And that was near the crematorium, was the trains. We had to go there and unload this, and take it on trucks and go and take it to the factory where they fix these clothes. They wash it and fix it, and they put it back in bundles and send it back to the army. Whoever was ripped out the holes and this, that was the factory where I was working too. And when the transport came, the train came with this clothing, they took us there to unload it and take it to the factory. And I was working there. Then they did things like they had to take more people, and they couldn't accommodate, because there was so much work coming on. And one time when I unloaded, this came back to my mind. One time when I unloaded a pile of clothing, and it was very heavy. And it was unusually heavy to have clothing, 10 garments or 15 garments or 5 garments, whatever. It was unusual. I found half a body from a human in the bundle of that clothing. And what we went through there, it was unbelievable. We couldn't have much. We had a little bit better food. Why? Because in the tailor shop, somehow we got some potatoes, except the rationing what they give us after the day's work. When we came in the camp, they made an appel. An appel was that they put out like an army, and they counted everybody, and they counted everybody to check if everybody's nobody is missing. So they counted everybody, and then something was not matching their papers, and that was very, 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 very cold that time. That was in February, I think. That was before they evacuated us. That was in February. It was very, very cold. We almost stayed all night till they counted. It was something short. It was missing some person, and they had maybe 300,000 people standing for hours in the winter night. The moon was in full face, and the cold was unbelievable. And we stayed there like this till they found out that what was missing. One person, like after the appel, we're going in the hall, and they have on tables rationing the bread. That time they give us the bread and a soup. So the bread is lying on the table, rationing small little pieces of bread. So one guy was hiding under a table somewhere in a corner there, and he was eating the bread. And everybody was outside, and they didn't know. They didn't know it was missing. Anyways, they found out. They found him there, and they went in and took him out. What they did, they put on the hook, and they hanged him in front of the 350,000 people, in front of everybody, for doing this thing because of him. We are standing there. And then after that, we tried we went went back to the compounds, and we were frozen to death. Some people they was so frozen. Some had the feet was the skin was peeling off from the frost. And then a week or 10 days later, they start to evacuate us from this camp because the Russian they start to come close. The Russians start to come closer to they had to evacuate. So they took us by foot. We were walking about 3 weeks. We were walking day and night. We were walking to the countryside, not to the city, but through the countryside. People shouldn't see it. And we were walking for 3 weeks. We were walking day and night. At night they stopped in a farm, and they put us in a once I remember was the best night there of the whole exodus when we had when was a full stable with cows in the winter time. In a stable from cows it's warm, and they had hay and everything, and they give us some boiled soup from the beets where they feed the cows. They give us the food, and we eat this food, and we were warm. That was the best night of the whole exodus that time, because it was a warm thing. Anyways, yeah.
What did you use to eat? Did you have any utensils?
Nothing. I had a bucket like from a can from food. A can like when you buy a can food, an empty can. It was a big one, with like a liter the size.
And you kept that with you?
I kept this always with me. And they put in one shovel, one big spoon, like this kitchen thing where they have a big thing, maybe a liter or something, and they put in the. If they put in good, you had good. If sometimes they spill half out, you had a quarter of it. One time, they put it on me, and they put just water. Was no thick stuff, And I hold it. I says, what did you give me there? You know what they did? The heavy thing. He had a heavy thing with a long hand, a long handle, a metal handle, a long thing, and he gave me a knock over my hands, and I couldn't use my hands for a long time.
When was that?
That was before.
On the walk?
Yes. Yeah, to give me a knock with the thing, why I stayed and wanted more soup. I didn't want more soup. It doesn't go in that can more soup, but it goes in, you put in water, and I want a little bit thick stuff to have a little bit energy. And that's how it was a terrible experience at that time.
How many people were on the walk?
Oh, there was a couple of thousand people, yes.
And who was guarding you?
SS, with dogs, German Shepherd. Yeah, I wanted to tell you now. My boss was there behind me walking, too. He was a very, very short fella. He was maybe, I don't know, 5'4" or something. He was maybe not even this, a short fella. And he fell down, and he couldn't walk anymore. He didn't have no courage to walk anymore. And they put on the German Shepherd on him, and everybody who fell down, they couldn't walk anymore. They put the German Shepherd, and he ripped out the neck. That's what they were trained for. Nothing touched the body, nothing. Just they took the neck and ripped it out, and the head was hanging on the backbone of the whatever. And then we were going. That was for 3 weeks, and then was already close. You could hear the aeroplanes running with bombs falling. So they took us. Was a city next to the last stop. They took us to that city, and there was a jail there. And they took us to this jail. The jail was packed. Everything was packed. The only thing wasn't packed was the halls. It was, I don't know how many floors, 4 floors, I think, was there. And so the whole people from our Exodus, they put into to this jail, and they put him in the halls. It was so crowded. They pushed people in because there wasn't enough room. They pushed in standing up, and you couldn't fall, you couldn't lift a hand, you couldn't move me the head, nothing, but they squeezed in one in the other. And then in the middle of the night, you started to hear bombs falling, and sirens, what they call it, the alarms. Sirens. Sirens start to go, and the alarms start to go, and it was, so what they did, they opened up the doors, and they told us to go on the compound yard from the jail, on the outside. We went everybody in the back on the outside, and people start to come down, so many, and then in the front of that was where they're going down to the basement, was a steps, was a long steps, maybe as long as this room, maybe 5, 6 steps, and they said very wide, and they said everybody to run there, and they're standing from both sides with machine gun and shooting everybody's falling in there, and I was a little bit far away, maybe 150 feet from there, and I a little bit was away from the crowd, and I saw a manhole, and I said to myself, this is going to be my savior, and the manhole, I didn't have courage to lift up the thing from the manhole, and I opened up some of the head holes big enough to put in my finger, and I managed to lift it up a little bit, and I put my foot. I didn't have no shoes. I give away my shoes for a bread. I had boots. My father made me, and I had the boots all the time. And I gave away the boots for a bread, and I had the bread under my arm until I finished them. I eat half lice than bread, because the body was full of lice. When I was free, that uniform, what I have from the concentration camp, I had to send it 3-4 times to special place to clean it and to humify. I'll call it humify, whatever, to take out the bugs from the lice. And then I made this picture. That was about 6 months later.
What did you wear on your feet after you gave away the boots?
I had ripped around from bags from potatoes, tied around the feet. It was wet, walking in the snow, winter in February, walking with this in the snow. The snow was that high, it was very high, and you put in a foot, you couldn't take it out. I don't know how I got my strength. I don't know how I got my strength to lift up the foot and to go out with it, because when they took us to the farm, to the countryside, that was so much snow, the wind blows so high that sometimes you short people, you couldn't see it. You had to walk through.
When you got to this jail, what city were you in?
It was Neustadt.
Can you spell that?
In Polish it was Wejherowa. In German was Neustadt.
Where was it?
That was around Danzig.
Okay. So you were telling us about the manhole cover.
Pardon?
You lifted up the manhole cover.
Well, oh yeah, I didn't finish it, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I lifted up the manhole cover. This was very important. I went a little bit out of line. It's the first time, I'm sorry. And I lifted up the manhole cover, and I saw, I put out a little bit my eyes, and I saw that I saw Russian uniforms already on the compound. So I lifted up the thing, and I managed. I had my feet in the side of the inside of the manhole. I had my feet on the side of the walls, because it was stones, the concrete, whatever, and it was rough, and I could hold on to it. It wasn't smooth, like you know, and I could hold on to it to stay on it. And then I.
We're just going to pause, and we'll continue in the next tape.
Okay. About the manhole.
Oh, we have a lot. Tape number 5, NISON CISS, September 13th, 1995. Please continue.
Well, that was the story from the manhole when I reached out. First I opened up a little bit and I heard the Russian language voices. I was a little bit more confident in me that something good is going to happen to us. So I lifted up more and I lifted out the whole manhole on the side with the strength I got. I don't know, because that was so heavy and it was metal, heavy metal thing. And a manhole has got, I don't know how many pounds, maybe 100 pounds or 75 pounds, very heavy. And I lifted up and a Russian soldier was in front of me and he helped me up. And as he helped me up, he took me around and he hugged me. I couldn't stay on my feet, nothing. And he hugged me and he squeezed me. And he says to me like this, he says, I am from a battalion with the tanks. And I'm the captain from the tanks. And from when the first tank stepped in this place, it was his honor to walk by and see what's going on. And by the end of I don't know how many hundreds of tanks was there in that battalion. And on the last tank, he says, I'm sorry. He says in Russian, he talked to me Russian because I understand everything. And he says he has to go. By the end of the tank, he has to go. So he took out, he put in the hand in the pocket. He took out the hand in the pocket and he put out some chocolates. He had some candies and he gave it to me. And he says, I'm very happy. He was a Jewish commander, a dark hair, such a handsome guy. And it was so touchy, to hear that. And then, after he went away, started to come in more soldiers from what they occupy already. He's the one who fight to go farther ahead, you understand, with the tanks. Then another group, the infantry, they call it, whatever, they're coming in and they occupy that place and they organize everything under their law, under the Russian law, So they started to we couldn't move. We were so skinny and so the body. He touched me, he was crying. My hands, my body, my bones I weighed about 37 kilo. I don't know how many pounds this is, 78 pounds, whatever. And you're gonna excuse me what I'm gonna say, that my behind, the bones, was no meat on it. The body was no meat, and the bones from the behind was sticking out like a piece of something, with no skin, no nothing on it. It was unbelievable. I couldn't walk. So what they did, they confiscated our compound. There was a big officers' compound, a huge, beautiful place, and it was like a castle. And the people who was unable to walk, and so they accommodate them there in the beautiful castle there with the beautiful furniture, with the officers, a big huge thing with beds, with the cushions, with the blankets, with the feather beds, unbelievable. It was so, and the Russian nurses, they right away started to work on us to give us medication and see what they can do to make us a little bit nourishing and stronger. I had a friend of mine, he was in Colorado, I don't know if he's still alive, Isaac Micklin, his name, and he didn't feel good at that time, and they started to revive him, and they did revive him. And then another friend of mine, we were three together, all of us three, he started to eat, they gave him food, and nothing could hold in the stomach, nothing, and everything what he was taking into the mouth went in the other way around, and nothing could hold. And I was lucky when they give me something to eat. I survived. It took a little bit longer time, and I survived. And they tried to cook food specially for people like us, you know. It was nurses and women doctors too, from the nurses, you know. It was with the Red Cross. They had a bandage on it, and it was a beautiful staff from the Russian medical teams right away around you, and they tried to do everything possible. Well, we were there for quite a while there.
How long did you stay there?
There maybe about 6 to 8 weeks. We stayed there till they got us a little bit back on.
How many people were there? How many patients?
It was, I don't know, it was about maybe 40, 50, something like that. Because the only two on there, the people who couldn't walk. You know, they were so they couldn't. Their health was so touched that they couldn't do nothing. And then they start to give us more food and everything, and then they took us. They said that we can go. We are already a little bit stronger. That we can go in the compounds where in the city where it belongs to the Russian military, and there was already more open. They didn't need so much medical attention because they straightened us out, and we could eat already, and so and there you could have more food and more solid food and more everything. We stayed there a couple of months.
Now, what date were you liberated?
I was liberated March the 10th, 1945.
And you went from there to the compound, and so when did you leave?
I leave the compound around May. Around May.
And you went from there?
From there we went to, they said that in Lodz, in Poland, is after the war was all the Jews who survived. They tried to concentrate in Lodz. It's going to be the center of the Jewish survivors, and it was like that. You know, it was so many people there. So we came there. How did we came there? From there we had to go. Wasn't nothing like you go in a station and buy a ticket. You had to go to the railroad station and sneak into the train, and wasn't a passenger train, was the freight trains, you know. People climb on the stairs, and they hold themselves up, tie themselves up to the bars from the door, you know, from the things, and between in the corner where between the trains, you know, the solid bars, and some went on the roof, you know. But on the roof was the dangerous thing because the roof wasn't straight, and the roof was a little bit oval. And when sometimes they went to a bridge, it was only about a couple of inches room for the train to go through. Wasn't that high enough, the bridge, and people got killed. So I pushed myself to the end of the train by the side where the oval thing it comes to lower, and I was lying right on the end and holding an iron bar where they had the doors where they open up. The bar goes from up and down the whole height, and I hold it onto this, and I managed to survive this way. And we came to Lodz, they took us to the Jewish community, and we find out first of all people where they live and where you can get accommodations to stay.
Who were you with? I
was with a friend. The one is in Colorado. It used to be Isaac Mitlin.
And when you say you went to the Jewish community, where specifically did you go?
That was in Lodz. in Lodz. When we came to Lodz,
Right.
there was a Jewish community there, and then they helped us they told us where to go to find a place.
Where were they set up? Where
Was in the city, in Lodz.
in a building, in a synagogue?
Yeah, in a buildings. Yeah, it was buildings.
What was Lodz like when you got there? What did you find?
The lodge was looked so like not touched. Lodge was so normal. Everything was touched. They took us where was the ghetto. The Lodge ghetto was there. They took us in the outskirts of Lodge, where the Lodge ghetto there was everything ruined. And in Lodge, everything, all the buildings were standing. And the streets was. Somebody took us on the street was Pietrkowa street, they call it in Polish, Pietrkowa 83, I think it was the number, and somebody from my friend lived there, and he was a tailor, and he got us organized a little bit, and we start to help out, and that's how we got a little bit accommodation to stay. And we got a little bit food, and he had connections with tailoring, and we stayed there a couple of months.
Where did you stay? I mean, where were your accommodations? In an apartment?
It's an apartment complex, not a private apartment complex. In Lodz the buildings was mostly apartment complex. Was no private houses like here. It was mostly apartment buildings, and we were there a couple of months there.
And then what happened?
Then what happened? Then I decided to go to. I want to go to my country, to Latvia. So I took the train and I wanted to go to Poland, in Białystok. And I went to Białystok and I asked for connections how to go to Latvia and to go to the border. There was the border they called Grodno. Grodno was a Russian town, and I went over there with a train from Lodz, and on the way to Grodno from Białystok, because our train was going. We went on a train. And what on the train was going around, the fascists was going around and finding out that there's Jewish people on the train, and they killed and they threw them down from the train.
These were
the
Poles?
AK, they called them Akowcys, they called them AK, the Polish fascists. They had a blue uniform in their army, but they had a lot of followers, So they threw out about 6 or 7 people I knew. They threw them down from the train, and we went to the border. And then when I came to the border, I went down. I saw one young fella came. He says, I went through so much. He says, I went to Dvinsk after the war, and to look for my family, and I found nothing, he says, and I give everything what I had to come back. And he had everything what he did. He didn't have nothing with him. Whatever he had money, whatever he had, he gave everything, and they took him through the places where the partisans go through the woods, through the places where the border, you couldn't go to the regular border, there. So they took him there, and he came back, and he says, "You crazy?" He says, I lost my life nearly, and I give everything away what I had, and I came back, and I'm lucky that I'm back, because there's nothing in Dvinsk. Everything is ruined. Dvinsk was ruined completely. Was no building, nothing there. Was ruined. Everything was ruined. And I'm coming back. You're going to we canceled that, and
what did you do instead?
I went back to Warsaw, not on Warsaw, but on the other side of the water was Prague was on the other side of the lake was called Prague, a city, not Warsaw, but on the other side, the same thing like here, Lake Ontario from this side is Toronto, and over there is something else, you understand? So they called Prague.
This was still in Poland.
That was still in Poland, and we went in there and we stopped and we went in and we were looking for something. We found a Russian soldier, and we were talking to him. He says that they have a compound here, and they have a tailoring complex where they do the tailoring for the officers, and they can use us if we can do that. And the good idea was that they took us in and we could get accommodation. That was the main thing, because you could get no accommodation whatsoever because you needed money, and the money was not, Polish money wasn't the real money, and they give us accommodation, they give us work, and we were working there for about 4 months, and then about in November 45, I was we were thinking to go out from Poland to go away in the German zone, American zone in Germany.
Why did you want to leave Poland?
Because we couldn't go home to Dwinsk, nothing is there, and Poland, I'm not Poland, it's not my country. We wanted, they told us that in an American zone in Germany, in Munich, is a new arrangement to all the people who come from the American zone. They're concentrated in Munich, you know, and a lot of people from all over, they come to their place there because they can accommodate them. And then we did from there. We came to the Jewish committee in Munich, and when I went, I went back. When I came to Poland, when I came to the Munich, before Munich, and the American zone in Berlin. Yeah, I decided, what came in my head, I decided to go back to Poland and to make
from Berlin.
From Berlin, and I had a few dollars, and I got some pieces of cloth, and I bought some cloth, about 40 pieces of cloth, and I went back to Poland, and I started to sell it, and to make a few dollars and go back, because I had a paper to go, not a ticket, but I had a paper the commander gave me where I was working. They gave me a commander that I go to see in Berlin. I see my sister. She was freed from the camp, and she's in Berlin. So I...
This was what you had told him?
Yes, that's what I told him. It wasn't really it wasn't really the sister. You understand? But I just said that's my sister. I go to Berlin because I wanted to go. And this was still good for another week. And I...
So what did you do with the cloth?
The cloth, I came to Poland and I sold it. And I got the money by the end of the thing. When I sold it, some hold-up guys, they made a hold-up on me, and they took everything away, the money what I sold, the cloth and everything, some crooks, you know, and they took away everything from me, you know, and I left with nothing. So I went back
to Berlin.
I still had the paper that I can go. I went back to Berlin, and I went to the place where I was there on the American zone, and I went in the place where the German, they kept us there. We stayed there, private rooms. They gave us accommodation for a few days, and I hired I hid a few dollars in the drapes there, and I came back and I went right away to the place where I put it away, and I found it. And then I went tried to go to Munich. It was very hard to go out from the American occupied Germany, Berlin, to the American zone, Germany, to go to Munich. But I made it, and I came to.
How did you go? How did you make it?
By train. And I went by train, and I came to Munich, and my friend, he didn't want to go back to Poland. I went back, and he says, I found out that he stays in St. Ottilien in Munich. That is not a girl, but it's like a place, like a sanatorium. And it was run by nuns, was run by nuns, and he was there. They told me that he was there because he wasn't well, and they gave him to get to himself. So I went there and I found him, and the show when we met each other, that was unbelievable. He was crying and I was crying, and he said, "Why did you go again?" He said, I said, "I don't know why, because I had the papers was good, and I thought I was going in the train, was going with the Russian soldiers, and they were very, very, very good to me, and I understand the language and everything, and I didn't have no problems. And I said, I can make it, so I'll go. But I made a mistake. But thank God that we saw each other, and we come back.
When was this?
That was in December 45.
And you're now in St. Ottilien?
Yes.
Okay. What happened? What did you do in St. Ottilien?
Nothing. They just kept us to gain weight. To gain weight. After St. Ottilien, I looked like this already. Then before I left St. Ottilien, I made this picture.
Who was running St. Ottilien?
That was running by the government. It was a private, not a private, but it was run by nuns. Nuns, only the doctor, only the sisters. Everything was run by nuns.
Now, during this time, what efforts did you make to find out about the rest of your family? Those members that you didn't know about?
For my family?
Yeah.
Well, I knew that they're not. I didn't do nothing there because I had to. It took quite a long time later, a couple of 1 and a half, 2 years later, when it started to come. They made a camp, one camp here, one camp there, and it was like I was in Neufreimann in Munich, and they had in Fehrenwald, and they had in Salaspils, and they had, it's around Munich, you understand? And they had a couple of camps, and they had all kind people coming from all over, and they organized that there should be available for them information and everything.
When was that?
That was in 1947. Already.
So you stayed in St. Ottilien for how long?
No, in St. Ottilien I didn't stay long, say about 3 months.
And then where did you go from there?
I go to Munich, and in Munich they give me the Jewish committee. I went to the Jewish committee, and they gave me a place. They told me to go in a place to rent private. I went in a place across from the camp, and I rented private. Then the camp opened up, Neufreimann. It opened up, and so I went in the camp, because in the camp, on the across from the camp, on the other side of the street, was private. The private I got from the government, from the German government. They give me food stamps to live on. Okay, I didn't have to pay rent, but I had food stamps they give me. But in the camp, in the Neufreimann camp, I got everything free. I got accommodation. I got food. I was getting food and everything. And,
what were the accommodations like?
Accommodations was small houses, very small houses. Was like a store and a half here. You know what's a store and a half? The 2 rooms upstairs and 3 rooms downstairs, with 2 bedrooms upstairs. Was a store and a half, small houses, and I with my friend had 1 room upstairs. and the room was, the ceiling wasn't straight. It was like that because it was like a story and a half. Like the attic one was finished like for living quarters, and here the attic is attic. You understand what I mean?
Where did you eat? Where were you fed?
Okay. Now, the commandant from the Knife Freiman was an American officer from Riga. And my friend, Rafri, he was from Riga. I'm from Dvinsk. So we had a little bit connections, free already. We had protection, like they call it, okay? So he gave us, me and my friend, he gave us a card, and we went, because we didn't have nobody, we didn't have where to cook, and we got a card and we went in the restaurant where the American officers, they had a restaurant there where the whole compound had the committee there, and the officer was a big officer, American officer, and they had a cook there, and they cooked for the officers. They had a kitchen, and they had a restaurant. And we got 2 cards each, one of each, and we went in there 3 times a day to eat with a card.
Did you work while you were in there?
No, because they give you the food and the accommodation. The only thing each was to have a good time, and it was entertainment. It was a big hall there across from the camp. There a hall, and they confiscated, and they made all kind of concerts, Jewish concerts and all kind of things. Because I stayed there till 1948, 3 years. I got married in 1947.
Where did you meet your wife?
My wife in Sant'Ottilien, there where I was by the nuns. She came from another camp. I forgot what they call it. Bamberg. Yeah, Bamberg. She came like she had words in her hand, and she come to check the hands, and I met her there, and we were sitting where we were playing all kind games, all kind, for the patients there to enjoy themselves, to occupy themselves. And I was playing domino, and she came in, and we were talking. She was sitting near me, we were talking, and then she said she's going away tonight. I said, how are you going? How will it be possible that we're going to meet again? So she gave me the address, and I wrote a letter, and that was unbelievable. She said when she got the letter that the whole campers, all your friends was going around and said that to her how lucky she is. I wrote on the beginning of the letter, I painted 2 doves, 2 loving doves, And I wrote it, then I wrote my story, It was so beautiful. And she said she always kept it, And then a couple of months later we got married. It was in February.
What was the date? When did you get married?
February 25, 1947.
And where did you get married?
In Munich.
Where in Munich?
In Munich was in the city. We got I didn't have, I just had a rabbi who made the thing, and I had one witness. And I had the ksuva, written in ksuva, the ksuva. Read a Yiddish ksuva, everything written. So my son is so religious. Last year, he took us, a rabbi came from Israel, and he's familiar with them, and they made by Bronfman. They invited us to come there, and he did lots of things for Jewish people, and he says he has to change the ksuva. Because one word was something not right written. So he rewrote it. Now I have the rabbi from Israel, and he rewrote the ksuva. It was February the 28th, 1977. I married in 1940. 1947. In 1947, my oldest son was born in December the 17th.
And we're just
same year.
We're going to pause.
Thank you.
Next tape. Tape 6, NISON CISS, September 13th, 1995. After you got married, where did you go? What is your wife's name?
Helen. Helena, she says,
Helena.
but Helen.
So what did you and Helena do?
Okay. We got married, and I got my accommodations in Neufreimann, Munich, in the camp. And my friend who was living with me in that room, he got married a couple of months before. And he left me with a nice accommodation because I had enough room. It was a small little room, and it was very, very interesting. And when my wife and we got married, we came back to my place, and I was living there. On the bottom floor was living a family with a husband and a wife and a little girl, a couple of months old, and a grandmother. And upstairs we had one room, and another couple had another room. And the room I was living was very, very nice. I kept it so beautiful. From nothing, I decorated the room. Was so beautiful. I had a couch. It was not a couch. Was just a couple of feet, and I made a frame, and I put a couple of American blankets, and I made it look like a really couch. It was very nice. The room was very cozy. It was small, very small. And
how long did you stay there?
I stayed there till we left to Canada.
When was that?
This was 1948.
Do you remember the date?
The date was we left. Was on the we left on June the 7th or something like that.
How did you make arrangements to come to Canada?
Okay. How did I make arrangements to Canada? I had in the camp from the committee, from the American Jewish committee in the camp, who was from Riga. They tried to accommodate us because we were from Riga too, so was a telegram or a thing what they ask for people, for tailors. They ask. Canada wanted tailors from Europe, so they asked me if I want to go to Canada. So I says yes. So I went to the committee and I said yes. So they sent me to there was a compound, they call it the Funkkaserne, where all the people who travel out from Munich to United States have to go there. There was a consulate there and everything was there set. And my wife at that time, she was pregnant. She was in the 7th month, I think. And we came to the consulate, everything was fine. I had to make a test for tailoring, that I know tailoring, because some people, they said they are tailored and they were a businessman. They were no tailor at all. So they had to give me something to make, to prove that I'm a tailor. I passed the test and everything was fine. And then we had to come back again to make a medical exam, medical test and everything. And then we got the permission that we'll be able to go. So what I did, I liquidated everything from what I had. I give away whatever I had, whatever I could, I took it. And we had to go to the compound to the Funkkaserne. That was from there. They took you to emigrate. That was the central consulate was there. And we came there, and they said that they asked my wife how long is she pregnant. It's 7 months. 7 months. They said we cannot go because 7 months the baby can be born. And it's dangerous to go on the boat, and he can be born on the boat or on the way. It's very dangerous. I was so upset. That was my whole hope to get out from Germany, you know. And my wife was upset too. And I talked to the consulate. I said, what I'm going to do now? It's very, very, very unusual thing. He says, I'll promise you. He says, you go back to your compound, to your camp, and when the baby will be born, he said, and will be 6 months old, you come to me. You see me, and I'll arrange it that you'll go. He gave me a written statement. That was very beautiful for me. The consulate himself. He gave me a written statement. When the kid will be born, he'll be 6 months old, straight to me. You come. I came and I gave him the letter what he gave me, and the boy Chico was 6 months old. Thank God he was healthy, everything was fine. And he says, okay, now we're going to make arrangements for you to go.
So where did you come in Canada?
I came in Canada, we came in Montreal, in Halifax.
And from there?
In Halifax we stayed there a couple of nights, and the tailors, when they came, was a few hundred of them. They came, but what they did, they didn't send everybody to Toronto. They sent to Winnipeg, they sent to Vancouver, they sent in Montreal some, and some to Toronto. My luck was in Toronto. So and one guy was before me there, and they sent him to Winnipeg, and he didn't want to go because everybody here in Europe, Toronto, Canada, Winnipeg, who knows Winnipeg, you know? And it is true, Winnipeg is nothing there. Most community was here, and the work, everything was here in Toronto. So they said you go to Toronto. I was happy, you know, and we came. We came after 3 days later. We came to Toronto. They put us on a train. They sent us to Toronto. We came. Toronto was the Union was on Cecil and Spadina, where Kensington Market is, right on the corner. There was a big building there, and there was the Union. And the Union brought us there, and they put us in. It was a big hall, and all the people. They prepared corned beef sandwiches. They prepared food. They prepared drinks, and they talked to us, and they made us feel good and everything, you know, that we are welcome and everything will turn out good as long as we are here. Okay, fine, then everything we finished, the corned beef sandwiches and everything, and we finished everything all right. Then people came, whoever came, who had family here, they came to that hall, to the Union, and to meet them, you know, and to take them to their places. But I didn't have no family, I didn't have nobody, the Congress brought me, I didn't have where to go. And I was sitting, and nobody come to say, you come to me, you know. And then it happened an accident that the baby fell down the bottle on the floor, and the floor was a cement floor, and the bottle broke, and he started to cry. So on the corner of the other side of the street, right on the corner, was a Jewish drugstore. I forgot the name. A beautiful man, and somebody went in there and bought a bottle. And next door, from the other side, from the Union, from next door, right there next door was a restaurant, a kosher Jewish milchike restaurant. And the guy came in there and he asked to fill up, make a bottle for a baby. The bottle was broken, the baby's crying, and they fixed up the bottle. I don't know if it was a little bit milk, whatever, but it wasn't the right formula for the baby because it's not. You know, for a baby, the formula. But anyways, it was good. He started to cry and everything. Then everything was okay. Then they said the people who had family, they went away, and we were a few families. We were sitting, nobody came, and they took us from the Congress, from the Jewish Congress, had our house on Cecil Street. It's Spadina It's right across from Kensington. And they had a house there, a big house from 18 rooms, 3 floors. And people who came to Toronto and they didn't have no accommodations where to go, they accommodate them there till they get something else. So I was, they brought us there and they put us up on the attic. It was a small room, but it was not straight roof. It was, you know what I mean, with a pointy roof. And it was so hot there. It was in June. It was so hot you could suffocate. And I didn't have nothing for the baby to make it, where to go, kitchen, a diaper, nothing. It was so terrible in Toronto. You know, in the land of honey. So I went down and I went downstairs and the baby was crying and I was sitting on the steps and it was on a Sunday afternoon, maybe around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. A guy, a Jewish man, comes by, an elderly man, I don't know, in the 70s. And he says he lives in the 4th house from the corner. You know, a small little house, it looked like a new house. And he says, where are you coming from? I said, I'm coming from Latvia. He says, I'm not from Latvia. He says, you know what? He says, tonight there's a meeting in the Litvish Society in Toronto, and this is on Euclid and Dundas. I didn't know where Euclid and Dundas. I know now. I'm just saying it straight, with an open feeling. Euclid and Dundas. We came to the place, a small hall, and it was. I said to my wife, I says, well, I'll go meet this man because maybe we'll get somewhere with this. Maybe this thing he tries to help us. So we went to the meeting. There was about, I don't know, about 55 people, 60 people, something like this, men, women, elderly people. And was Latvish society together, because Litvish wasn't enough and the Latvish was very little, so they made a joint together. They call it Latvish society. And then they asked me my name, I introduced myself, and they asked me to speak, you know, to give a short speech, how I got free and how I am alive and how did I went through, where's my family and whatever. And next to me was sitting a woman, and an elderly woman, maybe 55 or something, 50, 55, maybe something like that. And this woman was a rabbi's wife. And I didn't know nothing. When the meeting finished, the gentleman took us home. He went to my place and we went upstairs. And he went to his house. And the next morning, this lady who was sitting in the left side from me, she came to the house on Cecil Street from the Congress House with a taxi. Listen to that. She came with a taxi, and she came up, and I was just sitting outside with the baby that time, exactly too, and she says, I have a place for you. You gonna come to us, with the baby, with the family, the wife. That was the rabbi's wife. She was from Lithuania. I says, how can you do a thing like this? You have room, you have this, and this. You talk a Jewish, perfect Yiddish, she talk, you know. So I talk. She says, no problem, he says. Go in the taxi. She come in the taxi, we took our bag, whatever we had there, and we came to her in taxi, and we went to her place. Her place was Robert and Blue. You know the Robert Street, Spadina Blue, Robert Blue. On Robert and Blue, there's a church on the corner, Robert and Blue. And next to that church was a small little house. The whole house was maybe 10 feet wide and 30 feet long. It's a very small little house, a wooden house. And she comes with the taxi and she opens the door. She comes in and she says, this is going to be your place as long as you wish. She took us upstairs. Prepared a room overnight. How could she do that? I don't know. She prepared. She had 2 children, one boy 17, a girl 14, and that's all. And she hasn't got much room there. Well, how can she keep us there? She made one room. She made for the daughter, one room for the rabbi and the rebbitzin, And the son he slept on a couch downstairs. Anyway, she gave us the room. It was a small little room. It was so beautiful. It was so cozy. She was so nice, that Rebbetzin, that woman. There is not a woman in the world, what I can tell you. She's 95 and we are still friends.
What is her name?
She's in Moshe Zekenian. It was Rivke Berenson. And she was remarried. Now her husband died 20 years ago, the rabbi. And she got remarried and she got a different name now. But she's in the Moshe Zekenian and we're visiting here. That was unbelievable, what I'll tell you a little bit later. So then she said she fixed up a bed for us, and a bed, a crib for the baby, and we started, to loosen up and make yourself ready for the night. And she made a bottles, a couple of bottles. She ran out. She bought a couple of bottles. And the daughter was so smart, and she knew what to buy to make a formula.
After this, did you start working?
Yes.
And where did you work?
Okay. Well, after this, the union sent me to work. It's very interesting, very important, and I hope that I'll be able to continue on this tape for you because this is historic. They sent me to work. The union phoned me up. They said they have a job for me, and this is named Popular Cloak. A ladies' factory coat. And this was on Dafren and King. A queen. Dafren and Queen. You know where you go to the exhibition underneath the bridge there? You go to the left, you go to the exhibition. That was about a half a block before that. There is a restaurant called the donut place. I don't know what they call it, the donut place. So,
okay. So what did you do? Where?
Just a minute, one thing. So I went, they gave me the place to go to work. They gave me the address, everything, but I didn't have a penny. And I wouldn't go to the rabbits and say, rabbits, how can I go to work? I haven't got no money, I have to go on the streetcar, okay? So I woke up 5 o'clock in the morning. And I walked to work. This was 2 hours walk, 2 hours from Blue and Robert to Sunnyside. King, Queen, and Duffer. I walked there. By the time I came there, I was tired. I couldn't walk already. It was hard for me to walk. And when I finished work, it was the same thing. I had to go back. And a ticket to go on the streetcar was 7 cents, 4 for a quarter. I didn't have this money. I didn't have nothing. And I was waiting till the first check I received was $10.30. When I received this, the Congress gave me a loan for $10, and I before, and I had to manage that. But I didn't want to spend on the tickets to go to work because I might need something more important. So I walked to work. So the first check was $10.30, and then I started to improve myself. And I started to make a little bit more, and it was coming easier.
And tell us about your family, the names of your children.
My children, well, the oldest one is Joseph, and the second one is Julius, and the third one was Sheridan. Sheridan, we didn't have much nachas because he died about 7.5 years ago. He died in was May the 10th. He died, and he was married for 7 years. He didn't have no children. He was a wonderful son. He finished with honors. The diplomas is in the other. I'm sorry. The diplomas is in the other room on the wall. He finished with all honors, 85 from university, and in science in computers. And a company was waiting for him to finish the job and to finish the school, and he was already had a job. Wonderful. He was a brain, and he died in 1987.
And your grandson?
And my grandson is he's okay. He's 25. He's now a beautiful boy, and he lives with his mother. They're divorced, the parents, and he lives with mother, and he comes to visit us very often. And he's wonderful, and he loves us, and we love him, and it's beautiful.
So, in conclusion, to summarize your story,
Yes.
how would you say these experiences have affected your life? What do you want to say to your children, to your grandson?
Well, I would like to say this to my children, to my grandchildren, and to all the Jewish children. They should never, never, ever go through in their life what I went through. It's not for you inhumane. And I hope for the rest of our all lives, forever, ever, and ever, the Jewish people should never go through things like this in their lifetime.
Why did you want to tell your story today?
Because it eased me up. My heart was full of tense. My heart was full of grievances. My heart was full of sorrow. I lost everybody. And more people lost who wish they would be here. And I had a stone on my heart, the weight of the globe. And with your presence, doing this, you relieved me, and I feel wonderful. May God bless you for all your kindness, but what you did, it's unbelievable. There is no price to pay for your accomplishments, but you accomplished for me. And I appreciate your coming. I appreciate your hard work. And thank you very much. And may God bless you forever. Amen.
Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To my right is Meir Simcha HaTzadik, who I know when I was a small little boy. But I'm just sorry that I knew when he passed away. He was sick and he was in Switzerland for operation. I was a young kid to understand all this. But I know that he had operation there, how old he was there, and what happened, I don't know. But I know he died in Switzerland. And when they Mekaber given him, they brought him back to Dvinsk, Latvia. The whole city, when they brought him back for the funeral, was on the rooftops of the city. You couldn't go in through the streets. They carried him for 6-7 miles to the cemetery. The cemetery was on a hilltop, very high, and they had to change the pallbearers. They had to change it every so often because it was very, very high.
Who was it? Who was he, or what did he do?
He was the biggest rabbi in Latvia. He was a big tzaddik. He was known all over the world.
And who is it, the other man in the picture?
And the other rabbi is the Ragatzover Gaon. He replaced Meir Simcha HaTzadik, the one to my right. And his name was the Ragatzover Gaon. And personally, I saw him very, very often because where we went to shul on Shabbos, he lived not far from there. Him with the Shabbos, used to go by, and I used to say good Shabbos to him. I was a little kid, and that rabbi used to walk so beautiful with the beautiful black pom-pom pants and the white socks up. You could see out the shiny leather shoes with the beautiful hat, and the beautiful kittel what he was wearing was nice, black, silky, not a crease in it, and then with the tie belt, it was so beautiful. When he was walking with the shamas on the street, it was a naches and an honor to see it.
Thank you.
This is me, NISON CISS, a survivor from the Holocaust. I was freed from the Nazi occupation in March the 10th, 1945. The picture was taken 6 months later because I only weighed 37 kilograms. I couldn't walk and I couldn't do anything and I couldn't sit. On this picture I'm double the weight, and the number on the uniform is 96,254. That was my number when I came to the camp Stutthof, and the writing on both sides of the picture is in memory of my family, entire family, my wife's family. And this was very, very enjoyable moment for me to see that I accomplished in memory of my entire family. Thank you. This picture shows from myself and my wife when we got engaged. That was taken in Munich, Germany in February 1947. Okay. This is my son Sheridan, born in 1952, May the 24th. I'm sorry to say that he's gone. He's not no more with us. He died in May the 10th, 1987. May his soul be rest in peace. This is myself, my wife. We made a visit in Israel in 1969 in December, and that was a very happy occasion to see the victorious soldiers and our country freed by our own soldiers. And that was the time when my oldest son Yosef got married in Petach Tikva, Israel. My name is NISON CISS. To my left sits my lovely wife, Elena CISS, which we are married in 1947. We're still 120. We're going to be married 49 years in February. We hope to reach the biggest occasion, the 50th anniversary, with God blessing, in good health and happiness, and all the joy and naches from our children and the grandchildren.
Amen.